This conference will now be recorded.
It's 6:01 p.m. on August 20th, and we'll call the Monterey Select Board to order. We have all three members of the board present here in Town Hall. Unfortunately, as some of you may know, Don Coburn passed away a couple of weeks ago, so we're gonna start with a moment of silence and just appreciate all the work that Don put into the town over the years. Okay, thank you, everyone, for respecting that. The first order of business on the agenda is the tree warden. So Kevin, thanks for joining us, and you wanna give an update about the cutting plan on Beartown Mountain Road?
Yes, that's right, and I might take a minute to mention one other thing as well. So the Beartown Mountain Road project is a project that is being undertaken by National Grid as a reminder to, I mean, you all know, but still just as a reminder to everyone. National Grid does periodic cutting at its own expense to keep hazard trees off of its lines. Trees that they propose to take down from the town right of way, which are town trees, have to be approved by the tree warden. If they ever propose to take down a tree from private property, then the National Grid folks will be in touch with the homeowner and get homeowner's approval. So let's see, Beartown is, National Grid is doing this project on Beartown Mountain. They've marked about 70 to 75 trees approximately. Of those, they're almost all ash trees, and we know the story of ash trees around here. The ash trees they've marked are either dead or dying. They're clearly hazard trees, and there's no reason to object to them coming down. It's necessary work. There are a few trees, and I want to say maybe 3 or 4 oak trees that they have flagged. 2 of those are just outright dead, and if anybody wants, I can talk a little bit about the oak trees dying, because we have had a lot of oak trees dying in the past year. But those dead oak trees can come down. Another oak that's marked, it looks okay at first glance, but the base is actually hollow and it's leaning precariously. So I think it's fine to take that down. There are a few other there's a little maple, there's a little beech, but basically the takeaway is that the trees that are coming down are by and large ash trees, and there's no reason not to approve them. And so I gave them the go ahead to take those trees out. I did take their ribbon off of one oak tree that I thought was in reasonable shape. It did have dead wood in the top, but it was not killed in the way that, it was not dead. So I thought we should give that another chance, because the canopy appears to be actually leafing out again and kind of like regaining some lost ground. So we were able to keep one tree from that cull. Let's see, they were supposed to begin today. National Grid let me know that they have postponed it. They hope to reschedule for within the next 2 weeks. That's all I know on that. Their plan is to cut over 2 days. They're going to be using some big equipment. It's kind of a pilot program for them. And in order to get that big equipment in there, they have to turn off the power. So it's an outage. It's a planned outage. And as far as I know, talking to National Grid and also talking to some residents on Beartown, National Grid has been informing residents about that outage. That's not my business, but I'm just sharing with you what I know. That's everything on Beartown. And the one other thing, just to let everyone know, we're going to do a day. I have scheduled John Field, who is the arborist who does the tree work for the town, on Friday, so that's the 23rd. To do a day of spot removal of hazard trees on 23 on Gould Flat, on Blue Hill Road along Corshire Cemetery, and then at the bottom of River Road. And again, these are all hazard trees. The ones on Gould Flat are the willow trees, one of which has broke off in storm, and the other two are pretty busted up, so we're taking those out as well. Otherwise, we have ash that are coming down, and there's one dead oak that's coming down. So that's the shape of things with the tree board these days. Any questions?
Thanks for
Yeah,
being
thank
so
you.
thorough is my first thing. Not only that, for not only being thorough, but then for coming and telling us about it. And that might sound weird, but it's really nice to get that view and hear about what's going on and have some clarity on it. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And so when you drive Beartown Mountain Road, the orange ribbons, that means that's a tree that's scheduled to be taken down.
Correct.
Okay. All right, and then the only other question I have is, you're saying National Grid's informing everyone of the planned outage?
As far as I know,
Okay.
yes, as far as I know.
As long as that's the case, then we won't worry about it.
Did I see it on the Google page or
I
something?
was just thinking, I thought
I
I
saw- I
got
read
an
it
email in
somewhere,
my
but I can't
personal
remember.
email, but then it didn't happen. And I was like, well, it didn't happen, but that's why it didn't happen, because they postponed it.
Okay. If for some reason we find out that we know when it is and they aren't gonna notify everybody, or even if they notify the Beartown Mountain Road residents, it might be worth we might send out a blast to our people, to our list, if and when we know that it's scheduled.
Does it-
Whenever I hear anything, if I hear anything from National Grid in advance, I'll forward that information to Roger.
Yeah.
And then he could distribute it through the channels.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's
Does the cutting start at the junction with Cherry Road?
Let's see, no, it starts it's along the unpaved part of
Yeah, unpaved.
of Beartown Mountain.
I wonder how much of the road they have to take down for whatever they need to do,
Mhm.
but I guess we'll find out. Anyway,
Well, thank you for the update, Kevin. The next item is speeding cars on Main Road in the village. So Paul, thank you for joining us, and Kevin, it's my understanding that you're also here to discuss the issue.
Well, I'm gonna stick around because
Yeah.
I'd like to hear, and since I'm a neighbor and on that curve.
Paul, you.
Can you move your wall in?
So I gave you, should I start?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Thank you, Paul.
I just gave you a simple little sketch here. Basically, the idea was, when I first moved in where I am, because I have a pretty good spot when the cars go by, when the radar detector up here is working, when you come in from the east, which it hasn't been, the one that's right by the schoolhouse, hasn't been working for about 3 months. But I got pretty good at seeing how fast people were going, because I guess and then looked down and there it was, so it's kind of a game for a while. So the average speed of people going by there at 25 is between 30 and 40 miles an hour. Mostly 35, 40 miles an hour. I've seen people go by there at 50 miles an hour. Last week I saw a guy pass another guy right in front of my place, and he had to be doing 60 miles an hour heading into town. And going the other way, I notice I don't see any signs. There's one over here, but then when you get into town, you start going out of town, there's no speed limit signs. And the people, right before the bend, near where Sandersfield Road is, by that point, they're doing 45 miles an hour. But I don't know what the speed limit is there. On the other side, it's 25 coming into town.
there's a sign just up there that says 25, but I don't know where the
Yeah, but then
25
you're coming
sign
down-
is.
It doesn't, after you go through town, there's not one, then as you go past Sandersfield Road, it says 40.
So it's 25 through this whole piece till
Right.
after Sandersfield Road,
Well, actually,
theoretically.
if you look, so the only sign there is coming from the east, you're coming into town, going west, is a 25-mile-per-hour speed sign. And that is 270 feet up the road. So it's 300 feet, it'd be a football field. So it's a football field that way. And then past Eaton Road, you go another 220 feet, and then another 150 feet, and you're at Kevin's stone wall. And that's when really you make it around the curve enough to actually see down into town. So when somebody goes there, it's that big distance. They're coming around the bend. When they get around the bend, they've already gone close to 1,000 feet. And then when they turn and they get the first look down into town, there's no speed signs. The radar gadget that they have hasn't worked for about 3 months. So, and also during COVID, the old police chief said to me, I talked to him about it, and he said that the state police told him to stop pulling people over. So it was quite simple, yeah, because of their health. So they didn't pull anybody over during the entire COVID, not even to give warnings or anything. And just in that period, it was obvious to me living there that people started going faster. And it was, didn't have to worry
Trucks
about it.
too,
Nobody.
trucks too, it got really scary on the highway during COVID, I don't know
Yeah.
if you experienced that, but I did.
Yeah. So, and I've talked to the police and all that, but really it's a matter of coming down here now. My proposal would be, is coming into town, where the 25-mile-per-hour sign is, if we could have a radar sign there that flashes. Because the 25, I've talked to a lot of people that come down, I'm out on the road waving people down all the time, because they're just going too fast. But I think my proposal would be you put a flashing sign there. The one right where the 25-mile-per-hour sign is coming into town, 270 feet up from Eaton Road. Or I actually would prefer it being on the corner of Eaton Road when it's flashing there, because then it's right before the curve and it's still in their mind. So they're slowing down for the curve. They see it's 25 miles an hour. And then when you turn and you look down at my place where the driveway is that goes into the Conservation Trust property, there is a pole with a sign on it. It looks like a house, and it's got maybe a mother walking a child. That's all it has. On there, you could have a 25-mile-an-hour sign. So when you make that bend, you've gone past the blinking light and letting you know it's 25. And then after you get around the bend, you look down into town, and right there you can see another 25 mile an hour. And that would just be putting a sign up. And then again, it would be great to have the one that isn't working anymore working. But just based on, and I've been watching this for years, we need something that attracts their attention, because the police actually said to me, they say they don't see the sign. The one was way before, and then the next one actually is a blinking one, but it's a little one, and the way the sun hits it, it's kind of tough to see, So I'm just asking it.
Personally, I'd ticket them anyway, because every small town in Massachusetts has a 25-mile speed limit, so I don't care that they didn't see the sign. Are they driving in Massachusetts?
Oh, yes,
They should
that's not an
know.
excuse.
No,
I'm
it's
just
not.
saying that the police officers have told me
Yeah.
that that's what most people say. Not as if that resolves them of the responsibility of driving too fast, but,
While we're putting up new signs on made by Curtis, I suppose we, with the blinking, because of the blinking sign, is that under highway or under cops? The cops do the portable one.
I think sometimes they work
Together.
together, because we have, and one thing that we might try out in this situation, Paul, is we have these radar signs that are semi-permanent, so they can be moved from one, there's these square posts that you put in the ground, and you can bolt it on, and after a few months, you can move it to the bad hot spot, and so the ones up by the beach are like that, so it's very likely that we could even just start with something like that and see if things
that would be great.
as well as the mobile unit, which seems like it usually works. and it was over by roadside, and I'm not sure where it is now, it often lives down here, so maybe one of those two options would work as far as another radar up before people come around the corner.
Mhm.
And a speed limit sign, we will just need to make sure I think that there's some kind of a process for putting up speed limit signs. It is a 25, so just be reminding people it's still a 25,
Yeah,
but
when you turn, then they're heading into town, and then at least they can see that it's 25 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And it's right there where the Conservation Trust property is on the right, that abuts my property. And there is a post there already, I said, with the, kids walking, family, people walking. I looked into it, and I got really close to just buying a sign.
Yeah.
Because you can buy them, they're exact same, they're to code, and it's just black and white, 25 miles per hour. And it could put it right underneath the sign that's there, the post is there. We could pretend like I never said anything, and I could just get one of those for $90 and put it on there.
well, why don't we start with through the town channels, and I will shoot an email to the police chief and highway superintendent and see if we can get some kind of a radar up by Eaton Road.
Yeah.
Before people get into town, because I think one of the things that happen is people fly through that 25
They don't see it.
because they think, I'm still not in the town yet.
Yeah.
If we can get a radar up there, whether it's the trailer or the other one, and then we can ask about what the option would be for putting up another 25.
Mhm.
And another justification could even be the people coming off of Sandusfield Road.
Yes.
And I think that they've already hit a 25 sign, so technically they should already know, but it doesn't seem like it would hurt.
No, and then,
Although Eaton would be before that, like they would.
No, but if they had where Paul's.
Oh, like
Well,
in here, right,
as soon as they would turn,
gotcha,
then
right,
they'd be looking at the 25 that's down the road,
Yep.
about 300 feet.
gotcha.
And I know that the police chief also does think about these things and has collected data. Those radar signs actually collect data. So that would be potentially helpful to see, maybe over time it gets slower, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
Everyone's in such a hurry. Yeah.
Well, and you've got people, a lot of people, believe it or not, because there's no shoulder, but you're supposed to walk into traffic, ride your bicycle with traffic. So people walk up the road on my side of the street, and then they cross over to the community center, and those cars are coming around the corner pretty fast, and, I mean, it's a potential problem.
And before Kevin, there was a humongous fence that limited visibility even more. Thank you. Did you take that down?
I did.
Thank you.
With my bare hands.
Was it fun?
It was such a joy to get that thing down.
It was only up for a few years. Anyway. Yeah, we'll try to get something rolling in the next
That'd be
couple of
great.
weeks.
That'd be great.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Kevin.
Peter, you said you had a question for Renewable Energy Working Group?
Yeah, we had a meeting almost 2 weeks ago now to kick off Energize Monterey, which is kind of takes off from a program that's in effect in the eastern part of the state, based in Wayland, where they just try to generate enthusiasm for, and most important, information and individual help, coaches they call them, for people to take individual steps to use clean energy. Solar panels, electric cars, heat exchange, heat pumps, that kind of stuff. We had a good turnout, and we had, and our proposition with it was that this group will form, Energize Monterey, unofficially. It won't be a municipal body, So they can kind of meet and talk among themselves as they wish. And there was good enthusiasm. We had a handful of people who were prepared to sign up and participate. We had one person who's willing to take on the website. This would involve a website. And the website template is offered by Energize Mass, or Mass Energize, whatever they call it, at a cost of $1,500. So my question is, can we use some of the ARPA funds to kick off this effort?
Is the 1,500 initial setup and then is there a monthly fee?
I think there's a yearly fee. But basically, if you get it set up and our local web savvy person who has volunteered to do this can maintain it, there's no real further expense.
What would the website carry? Like just information, options, where to get help?
We started, they started a Slack channel.
I'm sorry, I don't know what a Slack channel is. Sorry.
Yeah, I barely know what a
I've
Slack
heard, it's
channel
something
is.
to do with working in the office in the city. It is,
Seriously?
yeah.
Okay. How is that helpful for this though?
Well, it's kind of I'm not a good person to explain because I don't really understand it myself.
Stick to solar.
It's like a forum.
It's
Okay.
it's an email kind of communications
Okay,
among people who sign up for it.
okay.
There was, that same night, there was a Slack channel and people were joining it, and then people were starting to comment on it, and they didn't know who was reading their comment. Was this to that person or to all the people? So it's just another one of these internet communications things. But the younger people who were involved in this seem to think that was a good idea, and the Renewable Energy Working Group is trying to, set this up and make it walk on its own. So we are involved, or are involved as little as we can be. So exchange of information, resources, coaches. I've got a house, I want to put panels on it. What should I do? Who should I talk to? We would have people who can help with that. That's the basic idea. And on the website would be that kind of information. Following the template, the Mass Energized template, there would be kind of a scorecard of how many homes in Monterey have solar panels, how many electric cars, how many, and just try to build interest and momentum for individuals.
When you brought it up, maybe we could, not in the long term, is get some of the internet providers, or solar providers to buy space on it as advertising to help pay for a cost.
Mhm. I think, Peter, my only hiccup is just make it's part of the Renewable Energy Working Group. That's all.
How do you mean?
It's through the Renewable Energy Working Group is sponsoring Energize Monterey Energize.
So you didn't want to be involved, did you?
Well, we don't want the group to be subject to OML. It's that simple.
But the website can be paid for through, the Renewable Energy Working Group will sponsor the website.
Okay.
Like Historical Commission has its own website, which I think they were gonna make defunct, and the library and the community center each have their own website, and so town organizations having websites that aren't the town website is acceptable, and that's fine.
Fine, we can do that.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, I think that's the only technicality that I see, but otherwise, it seems like it's all in the same vein of promoting renewable energy and clean energy consumption and reduced energy consumption
Yeah.
in town, which are all good things and what we're
Yep.
shooting for.
And it's also, it's a different category from what we're doing on the REWG, which is specifically targeted at municipal involved or owned facilities, so.
Fine.
All good,
Fine by me.
yeah, we all agree that.
Thanks
Great.
for
Thank you.
building that momentum.
Sure.
And then when
Well,
you,
we haven't yet.
But you already had a meeting and people showed up, so
Yeah.
I'm calling that building
Yeah.
momentum personally.
This will help keep it going.
There you go.
when you
Okay.
submit the bill, just note that it's for the ARPA, Renewable Energy Working Group ARPA funds.
Okay. Yep. Good, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Peter.
Thanks, gentlemen. Pleasure. We had too many participation.
We're all in. Thank you.
I know.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Paul.
yeah, thank you
We'll
so
see what
much.
we can do, and I think in general, actually, we've been really responsive to hotspots of speeding. And hopefully there's a longer term solution here, because this is not a new thing.
Yeah.
Speeding around that corner.
I'm aware of that, and it changes
Was
the
never
whole
passed
vibe of the
today's
town.
standards.
Because in the sweet little town we have, when people are zipping by, it changes the whole feel when you're walking around, so. But,
It scares me the way they speed
Yeah.
on the Gould Farm straightaway too.
oh, yeah, yeah.
Like there are literally, I've seen people essentially drag racing down that strip.
Oh, I've had people pass me doing 20 miles an hour faster than I'm going, and I'm doing 40. So, yeah. Okay.
All right,
Thank you
thanks.
so much.
Thank you, Paul. So noise complaints was a kind of a hot button issue, and then it
Yeah.
got even hotter today, a little bit.
With that, what, the additional one that Frank said?
Yeah.
Yeah, that Tim Eloise, he called me, I spoke to him.
I think at the end of the day, well, you go.
I'm not sure what you can do. I mean, I think you can go and talk to him.
I think there's only two options we have. One is we have to suggest to Brian that he actually issued a nuisance complaint.
Well, Tim's complaint was the PA system during the day, like at 7:15 in the morning.
Right.
Everybody report, blah, blah, blah. You know, you can ask them to dial it down, but I don't know how you can have a noise complaint on that.
I think you can probably disturb the peace if it's too loud, but
Well, Hume was very problematic when they took over from Keswick. And as Stacy said in his email, which I didn't know, Kutcher's apparently was problematic.
yeah.
So sometimes there's a change in ownership, and I think camps hopefully begin to realize that they're much better off having friends than enemies on all
Well,
this
yeah, I'm not ready to go out and shoot them by any stretch of the imagination. I think we have to start talking to them. I mean, you gotta talk to them, but there also it's a camp. You're gonna have some noise, you know, it's like having a house close to a railroad track.
But keep in mind, some of these people lived with the old Camp Half Moon they've been there for a long time.
Yeah,
This guy's only been here 6 months.
yeah, but
Okay.
there's a bunch of people that have, and a lot of people have been complaining. This is now the third year in a row that we've had complaints.
Has anybody talked to the king?
Yes.
We tried to pass an unreasonable noise bylaw, which I am not really interested in pursuing that route again, because there's a kind of an anti-government up in people's business sentiment, which I resonate with.
It's also hard to enforce.
It's
Yeah.
very hard.
You know,
So
it's like.
I honestly think if we, all three of us, or one of us, get some contact information from the camp and just says, this is an issue that's coming up, and we just want better relations, and that's all.
Mhm.
And that's a starting point, and frankly, that seems like the right way to start.
I think that's the way if you want me to do the Half Moon camp, I'll call them and get contacts.
Give it a shot, because
You know,
we had them in here last year,
But,
and my sense was that they don't think they're a problem and they don't wanna change, but that doesn't mean that repeated conversations in different venues, it might be outside of the public forum that you get a different response.
Well, yeah, I think I would do that.
Exactly, I mean, I'm being supportive, I'm just saying like.
Don't build my
it-
expectations.
No, just be aware that this isn't the first time they've been asked,
Mhm.
right, and that, what they said in the past was, oh yeah, we'll tone that down. But their actions were not in keeping with their words, so.
Yeah, but I do know, and it's a bumpy start, but I know that there are other camps that also had bumpy starts with changes in ownership.
Yep.
And one way or another, people kind of
Ease the
ease
things up, yeah.
things out, and maybe you're like, oh, we can turn the PA down from a 10 to an 8, and all of a sudden it's not as
Right.
obnoxious, so. I just looked up, I know that I had previous contact with, some people, well, a lot of people, Abby Levine, I don't know if she's still at the camp.
I think she was the
Did she
running it.
leave?
Yeah, I think
Wasn't
so.
the
I think
camp
the one
sold,
this year's a
like,
new
3
person.
years ago?
This is the third season, I believe.
Yeah.
So you're saying you think Abby is not?
But what was the email?
Abby, yeah,
Yeah, okay.
I'll look
Was it
up.
Kamama or Halfman?
at campkamama.org. I mean, there's a general email, but sometimes it's nice to reach it.
No, I
Person.
gotcha.
Well, Frank, why don't you head it, and
I'm gonna start with the half moon, right?
well, Kamama and Half Moon are the same
Oh,
thing.
okay, I didn't know.
We're basically dealing with one camp.
Okay,
They
Um,
it's like Camp Half Moon Kamama.
It's been Half Moon forever. I think Kamama is like a national thing,
okay.
and they made it Kamama Half. Maybe. Well, Kamama Half Moon. Yeah, Camp Kamama is an international network of summer camps
Okay.
with camps in Israel, the United States, Spain, and Italy, according to Wikipedia. And offices in Israel and New York.
Yeah.
So, and I do recall being in touch with people from New York.
Yeah, and I believe that,
Leadership.
I remember the building inspector saying that the address and contact they listed was in New York, although it was returned as undeliverable, but nevertheless.
Yeah, a bit difficult, but they will, we'll reach out and try our best.
Yeah,
That's all we can do.
I mean, there may be enough, they may be listed on their website.
yeah, that's what I was looking at.
Yeah. There is like a campkamamahalfmoon.org generic email.
Right.
And phone.
Okay,
And if you reach them, just send along the contact information, and Susan and I will also just be in touch.
okay,
I'm willing, just be aware, I sit on the ZBA, so I think that I'm not going to be his favorite person right at the moment.
Did you reject something?
Well, let's just say tomorrow is the third continuance hearing
Oh, wow.
for his personal house.
See.
And it's not me alone.
No, no,
It
not
was,
before.
it was unanimous, but still.
Administrative assistant hiring. What I wanna do is hit the ground running when Roger's back.
I know, we gotta get a
Yeah.
job.
I really do.
So, you have the email?
Yeah, what did you think about taking the minutes off there? I mean, I'm kind of torn because I do think the minutes I mean, you're doing fine with the minutes, but if there's other
we got this.
groups as well, like, it's been
Yeah.
hard for Roger to keep up with the ZBA minutes, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, I don't think that there are people who really would be good and then they don't wanna do minutes, although maybe that is some people. What I am increasingly really wondering is if we can just find someone in town who can do some of it. I mean, there's people who even wanna do senior tax work off.
I think that Indeed may not be the right
Yeah.
advertising venue for this. I
Well,
mean,
we know part-time availability is towards the older people, and they don't tend, like Indeed, I wouldn't even know how to begin to use it.
Right,
Yeah, they're old school word of mouth. And
I wonder if our best tactic isn't a little bit of like, I don't know if this is the right word, but like guerrilla boots on the ground, just calling people that we know and just saying,
Yeah,
can
but
you
it
do some part of it, if not hiring the perfect person for all the things, but finding someone who wants to take on 10 hours a week of,
But can we
submitting bills.
post it in the library? You know, they got the bulletin board there. Can we post it at the transfer station?
I don't see why not.
yeah, I think so. So, in any case, we'll go ahead and just more or less, so let me look for that email quickly. Of course, I sent everyone an
You want
email
the date and time?
in this place, no, just the content.
The content.
I'll
of
go
the
ahead and put
ad
that
or
in the
the
Monterey
content of the-
News, I think, right?
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason not to, and I think that it might be, it's a more targeted audience than, say, the Shopper's Guide.
I say we just go ahead and post it again and do word of mouth like crazy.
But is this this is what we're looking for right here, right?
And there was some question of, Roger was asking, Mary said, do we have any ideas, should we take out minutes? Roger was saying, Mary, you wanna do an edit of it? My sense is just, the only thing I would change is review of resumes and applications will begin immediately, or something, instead of July 9.
Oh, yeah,
But other than that, I would just say, let's just,
I
Keep
think
posting.
let's just.
I don't think that there's legitimately people out there that would be interested and then see minutes and say, I can't do minutes.
I think so too, I
I
think a
mean,
lot of.
minutes are very important too, and they can be time consuming.
Alright, so we'll repost, I'll be into the Monterey News. I might put something in the Monterey News about the special town meeting, unless there's someone else who wants to take that on.
It would be great if you do it, I'm trying to work,
I'll take it on.
under other business,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I'm working on for it.
Okay. Okay, we'll post that back out, and we're not gonna make major changes, we're just posting it back out.
Just fixing the time of the review.
Yeah.
Or reviewed as received or something.
And I think it's gotta be word of mouth, and I think we have to be right on these, when we get resumes
Reach out to them,
interviewing.
Yeah.
We can't mess around with
no.
waiting a week or two. So we'll just do word of mouth and posting everywhere.
I like the library idea, particularly,
Or the
and the
library.
transfer station as well.
Yeah, transfer
I'll
station,
send
but, I mean, we can take this and put it out on the Google.
I think we did the first time. I think I'll make the minimal changes and then resend it, and then people can print it. You can put it on, you can put it on your front lawn.
Yeah, sure.
You make flyers and drop it in everyone's mailbox.
Yeah, really.
Send it out with transfer station stickers, which surprisingly people are still coming in. Okay,
Nobody, the new website, the requirements of the website, a lot of people, every time I'm sitting in the office talking to Roger, people would be coming in. A lot of people were complaining about what the website asks for, to.
Like their address?
To pay, pardon?
like your address?
No, it was some of the other personal information, that was annoying people, and David didn't even, he came in and just get a check, because even he was like,
Yeah.
And we pay a lot of things online, so it's not like we're not used to paying it online. It was a couple of questions.
Is it different from like paying your tax bills online?
I think it is.
Okay, well, we will post that back out more or less the same. Audit engagement letters, I have to go grab those, but
Okay.
I I think we all know the plan.
Yeah,
We all
I
know the
printed,
plan.
I got copies here. But not the original. Oh, okay.
I didn't print it out, I just read
I
them.
did.
I mean, they're basically
The same,
straightforward, it's
same,
the same thing, yeah.
but-
And they're the same ones we've signed the other years, so. I'm glad he was willing to do it.
Mhm. Hmm. I met with Dale today around 5, so I think we're gonna try to wrap up the contract in the next week. And then we talked, had a good conversation about everything, about the need for regionalization, the need to start meeting, the need for transparency. I feel Dell and I are connected. We don't agree on everything, but we can at least talk with each other about it. And, you know, I think he feels the same way I do. We need to start having a conversation.
Yeah.
You know.
I know that the capital improvement stuff is gonna be a issue for them, because they really want to have that separately, and it is what it is though.
Yeah, but I think, yeah, but what I explained to Dell is, Dell, you have a labor cost now that, you know, I don't know all the detail. You have regionalization, which is gonna cost some. And then you have your building needs, just keeping what it is in the capital cost. And we have to start talking to everybody so we can formulate a plan. You know, it's gotta be a transition. You know, this year we're gonna deal with Manning, the next year we'll make some improvement. You know, I don't know what it looks like, but there's all these kind of silo conversations going on, and we need to get it in here. And then we actually talked a little bit about the Otis Beckett thing. He goes, well, you know, they don't get along with their, you know, there's tension between the select board. I said, well, I've looked at the notes. You know, I go on the agenda, I look at what their minutes say, and I go, yeah, there is. But if we don't talk about it, you know, there's no transparency.
So when we get to the end, I went to the Otis select board meeting last week,
Oh, yeah.
so, with the fire chief and the assistant fire chief, I can tell you, I mean, we
Okay.
can get this done first.
Alright. So I'm just clarifying before we're signing, this is for the fiscal year 23 audit, which is almost done, and then we're asking for the fiscal year 22 audit.
Right.
And we'll raise funds for the fiscal year 24 audit at the town meeting.
Right.
Okay, we're all good with that, there's no
Yep.
opposition, I'm signing.
Okay.
Employee handbook, personnel policy, I'm not sure if.
Yeah,
there's
we're not there
anything
yet, she was on holidays,
Okay.
so, we have an appointment set up for next Tuesday.
That's like,
Is she close?
Pardon?
Is she close?
Yeah, so we had a meeting,
Am I gonna finish the firehouse contract first, or are you gonna finish the handbook first?
I don't know,
or is the
we'll
general,
see.
or is the general store gonna be open?
Yeah. Not that. We went down the entire hit list of items, questions that Mary had pegged or she had pegged, and made clear all the issues, cause a lot of them were like, are you actually doing this? Are you actually doing that? Is this what you really mean? And she was gonna go through and try to incorporate those, and then I think we're gonna have to go back and look at them. There are some things you guys are gonna, part of what I'll do after that next meeting is I'm gonna go through and tag the things that I think the select board needs to discuss, like, this would be a change, do we want to do it, kind of thing.
Okay.
There's not a huge number of them, but I won't feel comfortable changing anything really substantively. Changing the way something is worded, maybe, but, or what order it's in, I'm not worried about that, but anything that's a substantive change, I think we should at least discuss it, not otherwise.
Especially if it's not a requirement of law that we're just
Right.
coming up to speed with.
Yeah.
It's like a question of,
I would inform you,
Yeah.
like, hey, notice that this changed. And the only other part is whether or not we wanna kind of, and we discussed this, we're comfortable making a bunch of separate policies. So I'm not sure, that might entail completely disassembling what exists.
that I'm not opposed to.
Um,
And I think you made a good case, or you relayed the good case
right.
for doing it, because they can be updated.
Right, individually, instead of the
Individually.
whole thing. So, anyway, okay, so that's what that is.
Next item, quick, November special town meeting, I put a little bit more on writing about the date. So I put target date for signing warrant would be October 8th. The last regular meeting at which we could do it is October 15th. And obviously, in a pinch, we could do it later on that week. But,
It would be great to get it done early.
yeah, and so I just put more of like, on the top, the ones that I think we're almost certainly gonna have, although sometimes things don't pan out the way you expect, and then on the bottom, things that we're hoping to have, or that we may have or may not. And let me know if I'm missing it. No?
So,
Do you have any clue from David how that bylaw stuff is?
I don't, I mean, he's in Denver at
Oh,
a
yeah.
big chemistry conference right now, so.
Other than I think it was really close, so.
It is
Yeah.
close, so. STRs, so just to let you know, I did go and look at the numbers. We got about 90K from FY 2024's community impact fee and room tax. It was 89, the thing that's confusing to me is it's I think 3%, 3% or 6%, whatever, and the room tax was 89 and change, and the community impact fee was 5,000 and change, and I'm like, the percentages argue otherwise, but I don't quite understand.
Now,
how-
wasn't there something about how many, if the homeowner lived on the, was the primary, if it was their house? I remember,
Like about whether you pay the community
when we
impact
passed
or
it,
not?
the language at town meeting, there was a lot of question about this specific wording.
Well, there were
forget
the
the
two
whole time.
parts where if you manage it yourself and if you had it managed,
Yeah.
but basically those were the same exact language, except basically it's saying, we don't care who manages it, you still have to pay.
Yeah.
Was the upshot of that part. But anyway, that.
We got about
that was it.
$90,000
About $90,000
in fiscal year 24.
for fiscal year 24, which ended obviously in July. So I don't know whether we have that all, but that's what it says we collected.
And what that also kind of tells us is if we wanted to regulate them, we could potentially pay a significant amount of money to a software or a person dedicated to doing some work on that. Because as I understand it, some of the softwares that you use to track them, some of the ways that you need to collect data take time and energy.
As I understand it too, I have a lot of questions about, how much benefit there is to a town with that level of tracking, right? Like, I understand the desire, like, I wanna know everyone who's doing this, and I think it's good to have a contact name for everyone who's doing it, but some of the stuff is worth doing, it's certainly worth having the place inspected. So I think asking for a fee to be able to know, have a contact if something is a problem, and to make sure that they have the correct facilities and that they're not advertising that house that has 2 bedrooms can take 30 people, because it's not gonna have a septic system that handles 30 people. And that, they have to have enough parking spaces for the number of people that they're saying like, those are all good things. How much work it would take to monitor that and who we would have monitoring that, like, I'd hate to see the 90K get used just to keep track of those people, that would not seem like a good use of that money today. Looking at the things today I was looking at both the one that passed in Richmond, Egremont, Alford, and Sandusfield, like, who knew Sandusfield would happen? And a lot of them are focused on, well, let's just do record keeping. They have different maximum number of days, there's pros and cons, there's a sort of, one of them has we won't allow corporations, but LLCs are okay if all of the members of the LLC are natural persons, I believe was the phrase used. It's so you can't have like a member of the LLC that's another corporation, so you're hiding that you're corporate. I don't I'm not sure that what the best vehicle for that is, but, one concern, and it is happening lots of places, is that corporates are now actually actively buying up real estate in a lot of places. They've done it in cities for years, but apparently it's now happening elsewhere, and some of the corporates are doing it as an investment property, some are doing it to run basically unlicensed hotels, and some of them are doing it to have vacation homes for their corporate executives or whatever, but, and then they're like, well, we can run an SDR when we don't have anybody there. I don't know how effective that is or how much, impact it has. So I'm still trying to figure out what, I'd like to see us not letting corporates in. I don't know, even the days becomes tricky, right? Mickey pointed out to me, well, if you put 45, you can only do it for 45 days. If they're just doing it weekends, right,
Yeah.
that's, right,
It's a weekend.
right, Richmond put 80 days, that's basically 3/4 of the year on weekends. Now, a lot of people rent for a week in the summers or in whatever season, but I think when they put the day thing on there, they're assuming it'll be a week at a time, but what if it isn't? And I don't have those answers, I don't see a clear way to do it, and I know that there are people in town who value it. I kind of feel like if there's a clear owner to the property, that's at least something, not a firm. I think there would be some support for at least that piece, but I don't know how you police it.
It could be expensive to police.
And if, there may not be a mechanism to do it either.
Yeah.
Well, you'll draft something up?
I'm gonna try.
Yeah. Alright,
Whether, like, if we need to have, for lack of, I hate the word hearing, but
oh,
public meeting
session,
is something which is gonna mean it's not gonna be ready for November.
but that's fine too.
But at least.
I'd rather it happen in May and it's all squared away and.
Right, exactly.
No rush.
On a related but different topic, the planning board is getting, BRPC is coming to talk about his finalized housing initiative plan on Thursday. And Seymour actually reached out, like, what do you think about having some type of working group to talk about housing? And it's not a bad idea.
No.
To like, ultimately zoning changes is definitely under the planning board, but thinking about what we could do in the town of Monterey to sort of try to alter the housing landscape may require a level of input that the planning board may not have except for those zoning changes. So I'm not sure how to approach that, but I just wanted to throw it out there and see what you guys thought.
I think it would be good to have a working group. Cause I think people just have different experiences. Can allow them to voice it. Two is we might be used as to get feedback through a working group that you might not get otherwise. I think that, now I think you have to have, 2 acres minimum to build a house. I mean, and that, how much, could that be changed? Things like that, those are things like, how do you, keep the cost down and where could it be or stuff like that. I think a working group would be good for it. We gotta do something. I mean, there's, the question is, if you have a working group, do you get into the open meeting laws?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if planning board wants to take on that role. They more or less took on the master plan. I mean, they took on the master plan. And in that case, we had an option of creating a master plan group. Or I think it could have been done by the select board, but planning board was willing to, they took it on, they met with BRPC about once a month for over a year.
They did a good job, it was a lot of work.
So, I don't know if they're willing to take the housing results and kind of run with it. They wanna be invested in those kinds of issues and have already put their names forward. If there's other people who wanna get involved, I wonder if they wanna be on the planning board. are we short a planning board seat? I think we are. I think we are, because Roger didn't re-up, and I don't think we
Roger
found
Didn't
anyone,
re-up, yeah.
and I don't think we found anyone, so one question for Steve Moore, which I probably already asked him, is does he wanna be on the planning board?
No, and he wasn't even putting himself forward, just for the record, he was just throwing that idea.
I think that being
He did
said,
give me some other names, but I'm
Yeah.
not mentioning them in public,
And-
that's not fair.
and maybe there are people who would rather just do a housing working group, and I'm not opposed to that, if planning board wants to do it, and we have an empty seat on the planning board, and there's someone out in the community who really also wants to be involved, maybe the
They
best
could- right.
solution is for them to be on the planning board.
And I'll bring it up if I can get to that meeting on Thursday. I'm gonna try to see, just to feel them out for how much do they wanna run with it? And would they like, and I would be open to say having somebody from the planning board, and I would be willing to be on it, and then other people,
Yeah.
other members of the community, so it's a sort of like multi-body board or whatever you wanna
Yeah.
call that, to get people who are enthusiastic about, God, let's do something. But we'll see, if you're right, if they wanna run with it, I just wanna see something happen, and I don't wanna study it, it needs thought, but I don't wanna see it studied to death
Yeah.
before anything gets done.
And I'm all for whatever route, whatever group of people that there's energy, let's harness it and move it forward.
Right,
Whether that's planning board or we appoint a housing, working group, whatever, that gets people motivated, and I don't know, people are motivated, but whatever is the best, vehicle,
right,
I'm all for.
well, let
Keep
me
us
see what
updated.
they think on Thursday.
We more or less aren't gonna talk about ARPA funds, cause I'm just not prepared. Is there any other unanticipated business?
I met with Dell, I think we're close to a one-year lease agreement that would be rolled back to July 1st and July 1st. I'm gonna send the last paragraph in the final, what we think is the final version to the lawyer, get him to sign off on it. That dispute clause has to be put in there. You and I started talking about, where do we go next, because the issue of capital came up, and, my position is there's a lot of moving parts. There's labor, there's the regional question, and we need to get people in the room to start talking about it, to figure out who our partners are and how we want to move forward. But, they felt that they wanted something in there like, we did a multiple year lease, which we bring up in a contract, it'd be at X dollars, 100, 150, I told them I couldn't do that. I said, yeah, we need to put more financial resources to the fire department and company, but I said, we have so many moving parts now that we just can't commit, I just can't put a number out there. But we're working on a cover letter that talks about the fall meetings, transparencies and support. So that's the last sort of thing I would think in the next week to 10 days.
And, I mean, from my perspective, we do need that overall plan, but also if there's a capital project that needs doing, I'd like to hear what the capital project is,
Well,
see some numbers on what it's gonna be, and then,
but
try and
they
get
have
money.
90,000 when the lease is signed.
right, they'll
They
have
have
90,000,
90,000.
which is a chunk to start something
So,
with.
but,
Yeah.
too, they got a lot going on, and getting it done, having the money and wanting it and doing it is two different things. Because the 60 has been sitting there for 3 years or whatever. So, we just need to talk about it. Because if you do regionalization, does your equipment needs change, and does there need to be investment there? You're gonna have to put more money into labor. There's just a lot of different.
On the topic of the fire department, so I went to the Otis Select Board meeting last Tuesday, and, my sense of the meeting was that it's fairly positive. the fire chief in Otis is also the chief of the ambulance, but again, like us, it's, as you know, confusing because Otis Ambulance is a separate entity.
Yeah, it's a.
And they are in the process of discussing whether the ambulance is gonna come under the town, but there's some tension there, similar to some of what's here. The upshot of all of it is that the ambulance chief and the fire chief here are definitely working on an agreement. They're already working to support each other with personnel.
Mhm,
And they're working on trying to formalize that agreement,
mhm.
which I think is great. I mean, basically, we'd be probably in some cases providing the driver and they'd be providing the EMT. And I felt like the select board is fairly supportive of that. I did say on behalf of Monterey that we're definitely interested in developing cooperative agreements, some more substantive, forward-looking cooperative agreements. And I said for the record that I think it's really important that we seriously think about combining fire and EMS services under one house, that the rest of the state does it. And I think it's not very sensible that so many of the studies currently being done for Berkshire County are EMS only. The entire rest of the state is under one house. And there's a lot of data to support why that's a better model. So I don't even understand why anybody's even considering it. I didn't phrase it quite that way.
Right.
There you go.
But what does it look like? I mean, you know, I know you have these ongoing conversations with Sean and Chris about manning. Staffing, sorry, I'll get it right for that. The staffing questions, we move forward with that, do they help us compensate for that?
So I think they're working towards trying to get an additional person there as well, so that they could, for ambulance.
Okay.
I'm not sure about their fire piece, so this was really about the ambulance piece. And I think what we're working towards there is a picture of sort of, I'll call it phased in, starting with paid officers. And the idea basically is oversight for other people, and that by doing that, like, there's downsides to having paid fire besides just the cost, and especially the combo can be difficult because you've got some people being voluntary and some people being paid, and that can create all kinds of tension.
It does.
Right, it does, but the reality is that looking both nationally and in the state, volunteer fire departments are gonna get pinched in every possible way. There aren't the people to staff it. There aren't enough people that are willing to volunteer. A lot of the volunteers are aging out. And now with the OSHA regs, I don't see how it's gonna be able to remain long-term volunteer. I just don't see it.
But if I remember right, I might not have this, but I've looked at Otis's budget sheets, and I think for the EMS service, they're giving them like $250,000.
I think.
Is it a nonprofit?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, I still, the broader conversations, because, our fire company, not everybody, I don't know where the whole company feels, but they feel like we shouldn't be, recruiting money or whatever, basically they want total support from us versus trying to raise money. And, if that's the case, that changes.
I'm not sure that I think the ambulance, whatever it is pretty much relying entirely on the town.
How would you run an ambulance service?
Because it's partially volunteer. And I mean, but just keep in mind, Egremon's down to 2 firefighters that can go into structure fires. Right, like, it isn't just us, is my point.
Well, I agree, I'm just trying to figure out, I still believe we get people in the room and we start talking about it.
Right. And I think that's where we are.
I think, because it's gotta happen sooner than later, you can't wait. We just need to get it moving.
But, and I think part of the reason to think about paying the officers, I mean, I don't know if you saw, did you see that big article about OSHA that was in the Eagle?
Yeah, I did.
You
Well,
know,
that's fine, because-
you've got fire chiefs that are essentially volunteer being given 15 grand a year, and he's like, I can't.
Well, just the paperwork
Yeah, just the
alone.
paperwork alone would eat all my time, and I think that there's a big piece with that, and if we want the thought to go into it to really figure out how to make this work, we're talking a lot of hours of people's work and a lot of people being talked to and a lot of paperwork being filled
Well,
out.
I'm not disputing what you're
No, I
saying.
know.
I
I'm
mean,
just saying, I think there's a terrible tension between volunteer and the history, and I totally, even though I haven't personally done it, get it,
Mhm.
but I just don't see another way out. I don't see another path forward that's gonna provide adequate staffing.
Yeah, but I take it it's incremental,
I mean, because how do you do it all at once?
and so what you would, this is.
We're trying to figure out a way
We're
to
just talking
incrementally,
now, but we're
right.
not saying it is.
Right.
You know, you can't hang me for what I'm about to say. That's what we used to say, you can't shoot me. Send me an email 6 weeks later, remember you said this. So you do incremental, what the people in charge would start off at a pay structure. So that, I mean, just to meet the everyday kind of responsibilities that come with the.
I think that's the thinking,
But you would have
keeping
one
the-
person
the
trying to
current-
do the two, would that be like one person doing Monterey and Otis, doing the paperwork for the two?
I'm not, the paperwork part, I'm not sure how it's gonna work. I mean, I think essentially this particular thing, they're thinking on the system that they've actually been using, that when there's a call, they respond and we respond. And that our person might be the person that ends up driving the ambulance while the EMT would drive the ambulance to the call.
Mm-hmm.
But one of our responders might be the person that then drives the ambulance to the hospital with the EMT, with the patient.
Mm-hmm.
That was my
Have we done any, I don't even, is the ambulance right there in Otis at the fire station?
I believe so.
Okay, yeah.
Or
But someone I thought said it was-
Is
do
it a
they-
separate house, do you know?
It's all one building.
So,
It's one building right as you go into Otis there. There's the firehouse that's on the left-hand side, and you go down to each south.
but I wasn't sure if the ambulance was housed.
But is that shared with Beckett now, or is it just strictly?
No, that's fire.
Or
I'm
that's
sorry,
police.
police, yes.
Mhm. Was Gary at the meeting? I know he had surgery. Yeah.
All three of them were there.
Mhm. I'm a proponent, let's get everybody in the room, start talking.
I know, I felt
'Cause-
like it was, to me, it was way to feel out what the mood of the select board was, and I felt like they were at least in theory supportive
Mhm.
of what Dan was saying. They are also thinking about how to bring it under the town entirety, which for many of the same reasons we discussed doing it.
Yeah,
And
that, if it's a
and the word
nonprofit,
audit was being tossed around.
the what?
The word audit was being tossed around.
Well, I think that's a concern that I've heard before.
Everybody's concerned.
Mhm.
Everybody wants to know that we know where the money's going. I get that. Like, and the other side is, we don't wanna pay 20 grand for an audit to tell you that there's not a lot of money and it's being spent on the equipment and people. Like, I see both sides of it, but at the end of the day, it's public money.
Well, it's public money, that's the thing. And two is, unless we have a good picture and if we're doing these, regional things, you need to establish that kind of transparency up. And I don't have a problem saying, yeah, we'll do an audit, but it may not look good. Well, then you know what you gotta deal with. It's not, I think you have to watch a fine line. It's not us against them. It's the transparency is the important part, because you can do better planning. If you know that they have a well, they're in dire need, we're gonna give them more money this year to help them correct this problem, but we're not gonna spend money over here. That's what I'm trying to say with the fire company. It's too many moving parts now, and we don't have complete transparency for a lot of reasons. Nobody's at fault for that. But you gotta have the transparency. We may come and say, okay, let's see it. Oh, shit, it's a problem. but then you can start to deal with it.
At least if you identify the problems, you can
can,
seek
but
to address
you're
them.
gonna, it's, it's what you don't know that kills you. So if you have the transparency, and I don't want them to feel guilty about it, I know, chances are they're working very hard and they're doing it, but everybody knows there's staffing issues, equipment issues, and all this other things that they face every day.
Yeah.
15, 20 years ago, they probably never worried about staff.
You got it right.
Huh?
You got it right.
Okay, I got it right twice in one meeting.
Good, good.
Well done.
So I mean,
Yeah,
that's
so
the
I think
question.
all the stuff's on the table, is how to both what the plan should be and how to transition
Yeah.
from here to there,
Yeah.
are both big open questions. And
Yeah, but we also have, we're finishing the year lease. We're supposed to get into this conversation about a 3-year lease at least, by February, so we can financially plan. And it says that in in the proposed contract. So we need to have a conversation so we can do financial planning. That's why I keep pushing, let's get them together, let's start talking about it, let's put it out on the table, and then we can financially plan, because nobody gets everything they want the first time out, it's incremental. It's whether it's in private business or in municipalities,
or how about your own house?
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
That's my
there's
boat.
always more
That
need than
boat
there is
on land
funding.
and my yacht on land I got up there.
Yeah.
So,
What,
speaking
did
of continuing business, just wanna run by the next couple of meetings. September 3rd is 2 Tuesdays from now,
Yeah.
and then 2 Tuesdays from then is September 17th.
Right,
Do those 2 meetings work for everybody?
I think we already.
September 3rd, yeah, because you wanna have it September 3rd, because you're getting married. Or you wanna skip it so you can plan, I mean.
No, I don't know. I'll probably come.
Yeah, but I'm fine,
Yeah. September 3rd and 17th?
yeah.
It's already on my calendar.
Cool.
I have them all on my.
Do you think you'll be out of town?
No, I'm going to see the grandson Thursday, I'll be back Saturday or Sunday. So I'm planning things around, We're, the fall's gonna get busy with the, we have the budget, but, I got the firehouse, Dell and I said next week, we're gonna start setting dates for meeting in the fall. But I keep pushing, there's gotta be broader conversations and,
I think fall, well, we have town meeting.
We have the town,
We have November
town
town
meeting, but,
But we don't have to do budget stuff till,
yeah, but it took me a year to get this, 14 months to get this far with the firehouse contract.
so you gotta keep working on that.
Yeah, I know, but I gotta get other people in the room.
And I think that this, the whole larger fire thing is a big conversation and I think we, at some point, will need to have a meeting with the Otis Select Board, and
But I
it's a
think we
question
should-
of how we wanna do that.
We should start talking about it now, get it on the schedule in 4 weeks or something like
Yeah.
that. Because we could break into smaller groups or whatever.
They meet the same night we do.
Well, we can
But-
change.
So that kinda makes it easy. In some ways it makes it hard, but in some ways it makes it easy.
Easy.
And we've been meeting every other week,
Wait,
so
right, so maybe
You know,
we're
I-
meeting everywhere.
yeah.
are they meeting every week or every other week?
No, they don't consistently meet. According to Gary, he told me, only during the budget season do they really meet every week.
Mhm.
But he says when it's not budget, it's usually
Right,
every other week.
other.
Mhm.
But if they met last week and we're meeting every other week on the other schedule, maybe we
Yeah.
can do it in the intermittent.
But I still more or less keep my Tuesday evenings, cause
Yeah.
we've never agreed entirely to it every other week.
No,
We
I
just-
keep my Tuesdays up.
Yeah, Tuesdays or
My
Tuesdays.
brother-in-law's coming in a couple of weeks, I thought I got a select board meeting.
I more or less keep the entire day Tuesday.
That's what I do.
I just read away my whole life.
You just what?
No, it's sometimes this select board stuff, it's.
It's amazing
And
how
you
much
never-
time it can do, you know?
And then suddenly you get a call in the morning and you have to jump in your car and your husband's like, what about breakfast? I'm like, I'll be back.
Well, it's sort of like this afternoon.
Oh, thank you for doing it.
So like, I was about to sit down
My
and go
pleasure.
through the warrants, we got to sign that. And then I saw Jim's note, and it fired off text, next thing you're, okay, let me go through it.
Well,
That's
And
part
thank
of
you for
it.
doing that.
You guys do more than I do.
I don't know, but I still was grateful for you guys handling that.
yeah, the warrants are all,
Yeah, I want.
there was
I
a
need to
couple
sign.
people that had questions about bills, and more or less, they all got handled
Okay.
in this warrant.
Okay.
It's this every 2 week thing, you miss one submission, or there's one,
It shows up the next
confusion.
day and then it's.
and
But
it's,
don't you usually get 30 days to pay an invoice?
yeah, but, so for instance, some of these, one of the invoices I had to deal with
Earlier in the
was,
week?
they tried to sneak it in last fiscal year. It didn't get through last fiscal year. So now it's gotta be encumbered, but they also realized that the vendor didn't have a W-9 and wasn't a vendor on the schedule yet. So all of a sudden, we're 6 weeks out, 7 weeks out, because you need an encumbrance, a vendor, a transfer to the account. So all these things pile up, and you only get a chance every 2 weeks to pay the bill. So here we are. The encumbrance, I was looking back a couple of years ago, we had to encumber by August 1st.
Now
Which
it's
is,
later.
now it's August 31st,
Jeez.
which is part of the reason we always had so many bills from the prior year.
Oh, because it's
Because we
August
didn't catch
first
them by
wasn't,
August
yeah,
1st, I don't know
right.
what that was all about. But, long story short, we're mostly squared away, there's a couple things hanging out here and there, but we're gonna get that signed. Some select boards always sign warrants during meetings, we're the only one that I know that signs them.
Well, I usually
Yeah.
do mine in the afternoon, you do
Yeah, I-
Tuesday morning, I'm not sure.
But a lot of boards
Do
just
it right at the meeting.
do it at the meeting.
Mhm.
The fact that we'll sign it outside of a meeting and get people paid up, I don't really know if it's 100% kosher. But some towns wait even more, because they wait till the next select board meeting to even drop them in the
Oh, they're
mail.
doing it every other week.
Yeah.
Some-
So anyway,
You're past your 30 days.
all that being said, minutes,
One
And
more
warrants.
thing that I left off, so I did meet with, Roger and Pat and the other swap shop ladies. And took copious notes, and up to, one thing that I definitely wanted your feedback in is that they really think it would be good to not, we've been allowing people from other towns to come to the swap shop, and theoretically, they're only supposed to be taking things, but that isn't what's happening. What's happening is they're dropping stuff off that
Yeah,
that
I
really
talked
should
to
be
them.
MSW, and they're not paying for it.
She gave me the example of the swap shop guy, oh, I wanna bring a TV in. Well,
No,
we don't take
Take
TVs.
TVs. But then he has it in his car, so
Yeah, so his car and, you know.
he just like waits till she's looking the other way and puts it down.
That's really problematic.
Right, so I kind of am feeling like the transfer station is for people with transfer station stickers, because there's no other way to adjudicate them. Like, nobody wants to have the argument, no, you have to put that back in your car.
Yeah, well, they're volunteers.
Yeah.
I mean, they
Yeah,
should be
let's
put,
do it.
it's
Right.
like, just respect the fact that these are volunteers. I mean, I get irritated with people that, wanna try to take advantage of people that are volunteering.
But
Well,
even the
and-
people that are paid, they don't, nobody really likes to be like, no, you can't do that, it's a hard thing to do.
I think that's fair enough. If you don't, you have to have a sticker to
To use the swap shop.
drop stuff off.
To use anything at the transfer station, essentially, right? That's really what we're saying, if you're using a transfer station, you should have a transfer station sticker.
Mhm.
Would it be
Yeah.
nice to have it open in that way? Sure,
Yeah,
but the
they-
reality
yeah,
is
but-
people misuse it.
Well, they misuse it, but man, sometimes during the summer, you get up there, there's more cars around the swap shop than there is.
Right.
The only thing that might be okay, and maybe it just gets too hard to police, is if people from other towns want to come and take stuff.
But that was the idea,
Yeah,
I think that was the idea,
and but
you
it's not
could take,
working.
but you can bring, but that's not
Yeah.
working is the
Okay.
problem. So if you guys are on board, I think that, I mean, I know there are people that will be unhappy about it, and I'm sorry, but the reality is that there's, if that person is willing to police every day it's open, the entire set of hours, then we'll talk about it, but without that, there's just no way to make it doable for them.
Yeah.
The rest of stuff is stuff we can handle.
Thank you for dealing with that.
Got it, no problem. I mean, I was happy to meet with them, I think it made them feel heard, and,
Yeah.
I think their requests are reasonable and valid, and we're gonna make up a flyer so that people have clear do's and don'ts, and here's what you can do with your other stuff that they can even give out. Bulletin board up there, it's gonna be,
Thank you. Alright, minutes.
Right.
July 30th,
I sent you my small
yeah,
editorial comment.
which all seem good to me. I assume August 6th are not gonna get approved tonight, which is also fine.
Oh,
I
did
was
you
looking,
send
and I
August
went
6th?
home and printed it out, I started reading it.
Oh, there we are. No, I did not get a chance to do the August 6th.
But July 30th, are we good to,
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm fine with that.
approve? Alright, I'll move that we approve the July 30th minutes as amended.
Second,
Is there any other discussion? We'll call a vote,
yes,
Yes,
and yes, so that's a unanimous approval.
thanks for writing.
And there's no comments and questions from the public. So we can adjourn.
Wow, look at that.
We'll vote on a motion to adjourn,
Yes.
and yes. Frank?
I guess.
Alright.
What's Paul's last name?
DePreter. Unanimously, meeting adjourned at 7:22 PM.
When's the wedding?
So